Hi, I'm Lottie, and Bath has begged me to speak here today. I've been really nervous, so be kind. And I'm going to speak to you about product analytics. So I've been working in product analytics now for just over 10 years, and I've worked at a bunch of companies in-house. I started my career at Cath Kidston as a PR intern, actually, and then saw that there was a role going in e-commerce, a bit of copywriting, a bit of artworking, a bit of analytics. Ended up just like constantly doing analytics because I was really interested in it, giving people reports and giving them advice and recommendations. And in the end, they just said, do you want to be the web analyst? So that's how I started my career. Didn't plan to do that. I did a degree in music and a postgrad in journalism, but here I am 10 years later, still in web e-commerce product analytics. Obviously, I really enjoy it. Today I'm going to talk kind of from to people that work in product, but also this is going to be relevant to analysts and designers, researchers, anyone that works in that kind of area. But I'll start off with who, what, and where a product analyst. So what do we do? Where do we sit? So we wear many hats. We're not completely interchangeable with other analysts. If I was asked to do finance analytics, I'd crash and burn. So one of the things that most product analysts are interested in and have some kind of background in or have done some training in is UX and behavioural science. So that's understanding like basic UX principles. It doesn't mean we're designers. I'm not a designer, cannot design, but I understand it. Understanding heuristics, so what makes customers do certain things, how do they make decisions, and how can we leverage that to make them do the things that we want them to do on our product. And we have an outcome and a user-focused approach, so we don't always come at things from the commercial angle necessarily. I strongly believe that if you build the right product for your users, you will get the outcomes that the business and the investors want, but you should come at things from a user-first angle. Experimentation and analytics, which I think Fernando will be talking to us in more detail about later, but that's obviously understanding and using product analytics tools, understanding stats to some extent, and asking the right questions of the data, which is super, super important. So knowing which avenues to go down and making sure you don't go down too many rabbit holes, although I have ended up in many rabbit holes in my time. And just knowing, like, with the decisions that we need to make, how do we get to that with all the data that we've got? And then finally, data storytelling, which I think Tim is going to be talking to us about later. And that's basically being able to explain, concepts and things about data to people that aren't necessarily into data or interested. So that's influencing them, getting them to make the decisions that are going to benefit them and work towards their OKRs when they might not always understand why you're recommending something. So that's a really important skill for product analysts, because what we do is really, really in the forefront. Everyone uses your product or, can go on the product and use it and has opinions on it. So being able to influence when loads and loads of people have got ideas is really important. It doesn't matter where we sit necessarily. I've sat in a few places. So in product is obviously the obvious place, reporting into the director of product, the head of product, and then being assigned to squads, or if you're a sort of a lead analyst, managing people that work in different squads. However, I've also sat in BI, and that's where I currently am at Bloom and Wild. But we still have this dotted line into products. It's not official, but that's where I'm working with day to day. And we have the kind of centre of excellence of people that work in data. But really, the way that I work doesn't change that much, although you sometimes have to put a bit more work into getting in there, building the relationships with product. And I've actually once sat in a UX team. So there was me, I think another analyst, and a bunch of designers. And then it kind of makes sense because what we're doing is analysing, the UX. So having that relationship with them is really cool. But again, we have that dotted line into product. We're in a lot of their meetings, working groups. So it doesn't really matter where analysts sit. You can still utilise them in the same way. So day zero, I've called this. Basically, talking about roadmaps in product. Often they are created for a quarter or a half or even a year. And I often find that they go like this. You get these assumptions and hunches. And they're based on things like this: customer comments, the odd one, something on Twitter, people's personal experience using the product, competitors, or they've done it. We don't know how it's doing for them, but they've done it, so we should do it. Or just that's something we've always wanted to do. We've always said we were going to do that. And they tend to be decided by senior leadership and other teams outside of product that just want something done. And then at this point, the analysts are asked, how well is this going to do? Is it going to increase conversion? How much money is it going to make me? Tell me how well my initiative did. How much money did I make? So we're brought in too late to have a real impact. So then assumptions and hunches up here, if we understand our users, then those hunches turn into safer bets. So people think they've got hunches and they think it's just come from nowhere, but if we really understand users, then actually we can still use those hunches that come from senior leadership, but they're based on something more. So this quadrant, some of you might have seen before, I think I've used it once before, but it's sort of all the different types of data that we can look at. At first, I think this is where a lot of ideas come from, because it's a bit more like customer focused. I think it's human nature for us to accept what like a few customers are saying over like one number, even if that comes from thousands and thousands of pieces of data, because it's just more emotional and we connect more to that. And that's why sometimes you might do a bit of research, 4 out of 5 users say something, you run a test, and then the opposite thing happens. But if we start bringing in all of these other things, and this isn't an exhaustive list, it's just some of the things that you can look at, so all the quant stuff in this quadrant, and then over here is a bit of that quantitative but still qualitative like research, so surveys and things. And then up here we have things like session recordings, so it's still qualitative, but it's actually looking at how users are behaving like there and then. If you do surveys and things, then we're kind of relying on the users to self-report how they're going to behave, and that's still valuable, but they don't always end up doing what they say or think they're going to do in a certain situation. But if we start to bring together all this data, then we can start a process a little bit more like this. So collating and examining the insights is really important, gathering that data. So that's from discovery analysis, that would be mainly the product analysts, but also research, feedback, competitors, all the things that we were using anyway, or people were kind of using individually, but bringing that all together into one place. Using everyone's expertise for ideas, so the analysts, researchers, designers, anyone. I really like collaborative ideation sessions where everyone brings their insights to the table, and we might use something like Miro, and then everyone has different ideas, and you start to get some really different angles on problem areas. Prioritizing, kind of like as normal, but at this point you tend to have a better list of things to prioritize, and you kind of want to do everything because your ideas are a bit better. Experimentation. So there's another sort of mini cycle here, which Fernando will talk about. This is where you iterate, you refine. Every single test, whether it wins, whether it's flat, whether it loses, you can learn so much from. I think nearly every bit of analysis I do, I probably come up with 5+ different hypotheses on why we saw what we saw, because there's just so much value in experimentation, even if it's not always winning. And then understanding those results and learning from them, and that's obviously the really important bit. So analysts in this example are involved at every stage, but it's not just analysts, it's sort of everyone who's involved in this process. Putting it into practice, so obviously it's easier said than done to change big processes. So this is the kind of thing that you can put into practice at any level and sort of get it going, and you can build it from the ground up. So number 1, business-wide insights bank. So at the moment, most analysis results that we bring out or research, any insights, customer feedback, etc., is really siloed, normally in Slack, emails, a deck that you show to people, and then it goes into Google Drive, you never see it again, docs, and then conversations, so it's just everywhere. So ideally, you want this bank of insights where anyone can go in and add findings. So you put the insight in, and the insight should only be 1-2 sentences long, ideally, so anyone can come in, whether they're a data person or not, and get it. So people with brown hair are 50% more likely to buy pink flowers or something like that. And then a confidence level is really important, so did we hear one user say it, or have we proven it with 2 A/B tests, which were statistically significant, and we know this is something that is true about our users? Any supporting evidence, so you can put that in there, so any links to the A/B test results that you've done, links to the research that you've done, or a tweet that someone made, whatever it might be, that supports this insight. And then tags, so ideally someone be able to go into your insights bank and search for insights about the homepage or insights from a certain channel or whatever that might be. And the goal is that literally anyone in the business or anyone who's sort of in this process of creating roadmaps, is invested in the product in some way, can go into this insights bank. So anyone can see it. And the idea is that these insights become common knowledge in the business. And as you can see, therefore, the assumptions, the hunches that people are having aren't really hunches anymore, because it's kind of this known thing that, customers with brown hair buy pink flowers. And therefore, these initiatives that we create, they have better outcomes, essentially. Here's an example. This is a tool we use at Bloom & Wild called Illuminate. It's a free tool. I'm not plugging it, I haven't got any incentive to plug it. It's just really cool. So this is what an insight would look like. And here's an insight. And then you can have the confidence level. Does this pointer work? Don't know where this is, no. So this is a high one because it's come from an A/B test with loads and loads of traffic. And then you can tag here, brands. We've got homepage on here, subscriptions. It's related to subscriptions. Insights down on the left-hand side there. In Illuminate, there's also tabs for managing your A/B tests and when they're running and putting some screenshots in. And there's also now a tab for research. So you can collate the qual and the quant in one place and then link your insights to these bits of research. But you can also use a Google Sheet or another tool. There's probably other tools out there that are made for this. But yeah, anyone can have a login for this. And it's just a really nice way of finding insights. They've got little quotation marks. It's really easy to read the confidence thing on the side there. So your idea is that every time you do a bit of analysis or a bit of research or you send a Slack message or an email, you're also sending your link to the Insights Bank every single time and you're getting it into people's consciousness. Number 2 is making sure you get the right people in the room. So at the moment at Bloom & Wild, we have a team called the Shaping Team, and it contains the 4 of us. So product design, research, and myself, Analyst. And you don't want too many people in this group because you want to be able to make decisions. The idea of us is that we steer and we don't dictate. So we're shaping the direction of the squads that we work with, but we're not telling them what they need to do and what initiatives they have to be getting out at a certain time. So the first thing we did when we got together was just a big whiteboarding session on what are we here for, what's our mission. So a bunch of things here. We focus on the big picture, we create alignment, we help people focus, we introduce frameworks and processes that work for the teams, and we build confidence in the big decisions. And the goals of the team are basically to set this overarching strategy to the squads. We put them off in the right direction, but we leave it to them to make the decisions on how things should look and how many iterations they do and that kind of thing. We provide frameworks for them. We facilitate and drive the adoption of the Insights Bank. That's a really big one. And also ideation sessions, discovery workshops, so cross-squad as well, making sure that we're looking at the right things. Maybe looking at the Insights Bank and then coming up with a problem area and doing a discovery workshop for the squads based on that. And so our meetings look a bit like this. So we keep the quant-qual cycle moving. We've got a little thing that shows you the quant-qual cycle in a minute. By sharing all the research, so we come together and if I've got some analysis that my team has done or that I've done, I'll share the insights from that. And then the research girl, Emily, will share with me the things that have come from her research recently. And we see if anything matches up or if any questions come from each thing that our teams can then go and look at. We'll go through the Insights Bank each week and see what's been added to it and see if we can start to build any stories up. You start to see themes coming through, and then that will help us decide what we might go to next. And then design workshops, so think about what workshops you might do around ideation, around sharing insights. Here's my little quant-qual cycle thing. I'll definitely convert if you change this thing, so that's what a customer might say. Probably wouldn't use the word convert, but Then we do a test, and then they didn't convert at all. In fact, conversion went down, and we don't know why. And that just brings up more questions for us to go to research with and show them designs and maybe do some moderated testing. And this cycle just goes on. And I think it's really common in businesses that the research team is over here doing their thing and the analytics team is over there doing their thing. And we don't bring those two things together and we sort of don't maximise the insights that we're both getting. And finally, using analyst time wisely. This is something I created when I started at Bloom & Wild, having a look at what my team was spending their time on. This isn't dictating how it should be, but it's how it could look. Naturally, when you're in a product squad team with lots of squads, you end up doing loads of experimentation, and the team spend a lot of time on that. And I think that will always be the case. And that's just not the post-test analysis, but that's the working groups and prioritising, talking about experiment design, etc. But they were spending really no time on discovery analysis. And discovery analysis is so important, just to go off and have that time to dig into the data and get some hypotheses from there that have not necessarily been dictated to you by roadmaps that are already in place. And then non-analysis tasks. So I think something really important that my team will do is go along to research sessions, collaborative sessions, or listen into interviews with customers and take notes on that. And I think it's really important that they have the space to go and do that, because it helps them really understand the customers and what the customers are saying, And it sort of really helps with their discovery analysis as well then, because they've got a bit more understanding of why they might be seeing the data that they're seeing come through. It's obviously really quite hard sometimes to put aside this like 5% or 25% of the time to do discovery. So what can really work is doing a sprint. Recently at Bloom & Wild, we've done a Tableau sprint. We got Tableau, we had to build loads of dashboards. So he said no meetings for 3 weeks, no BAU. We've got sort of a bunch of stuff done beforehand. We let the PMs know, and then we worked really hard on Tableau for 3 weeks. But you could do something on a smaller scale with discovery and say the team is spending a week on discovery, and they'll come out at the end of it with some really great insights in the insights bank, some new hypotheses, and some like new ideas for us to go forward. So this is something that I feel really strongly about. Product analysts are subject matter experts. Like I said earlier, I would be rubbish at finance analytics, any kind of other analytics. I know my area, product analytics. We're not a service desk. So at the moment, in many companies, I've seen this happen loads, there'll be maybe a weekly meeting with the PMs, and they'll just set the work to the analysts, or they'll just raise the tickets on the board and wait for them to be done. And they will just list all the metrics they can think of, every splice of the data. It will take ages for the analyst to do. And then the analyst just works through the tickets like an IT service desk. Not really much prioritization. And then there's just loads of data that comes out of it that isn't ever used. So instead, these weekly meetings can be really good, where you get different people from the squad in one room and you talk about the experiments that were done in the previous week or the analysis that was done in the previous week, any research, show any designs, and you start talking about the decisions that you need to make together. And then naturally from these conversations, the data that is needed will come out of them. So the analysts can steer and advise on metrics. And it's more of a collaborative thing. And also talk about experiments design. And then we've got the shaping team, so there might be some topics there, and they can discuss that and think about what data we might need to move those forward. So the outcome is that all the analyst work is really high impact, and we get more hypotheses, we get more recommendations. Ultimately, we get more things for the great insights bank. The analyst always has full context and can advise, so I think that's really helpful. A lot of the time when I was more junior, I would just take these tickets on board, not really know why I was doing them, and therefore you don't have the confidence to sort of push back or to advise on other things. So if the analyst can be really involved in those conversations, they've got the full context and you get the most value out of them. And so, yeah, I've already mentioned that the tickets are shaped collaboratively. So finally, I think this is just the summarising. So democratize your insights. I think that is the one takeaway I'd say to everyone. Make that the thing that you aim to do. Be truly cross-functional at all levels. So you've got the shaping team, but then within the squad, you've got those weekly meetings with everyone and just get those conversations happening. And level the playing field to tap into the analyst expertise. So don't use your analyst as your service desk. Bring them to your level, have those conversations with them, and be really collaborative. And that is me.